Ladies and gentlemen, now I'm going to ask you to not post anything. Now, no one is watching, so no one is there, so no one understands what I'm saying. But I'm going to ask you not to post anything until I finish reading my little dissertation with the disclaimer that I don't know and cannot prove anything that I speak about in the following dissertation to be true. Okay, so off topic comments are definitely not going to be addressed. Off topic comments are not going to be addressed at all. So let me begin by asking whoever is watching at this point to not comment, not say hello, not say good morning. This dissertation has been I've tried to post this dissertation for the last 3 days. The internet service in the Philippines is absolutely terrible, and that's why I updated this dissertation to be 13 reasons and probably much more as to why I moved from America to the Philippines, that at the time was called a third world country, but I see the Philippines as being a very successful place to live in the future because of monies coming from Asia and more specifically China, Korea, and Japan. So please don't comment, and I'm going to start reading my dissertation right now. Okay, it's quite long. It's going to take about 7 or 8 minutes. But let's start off with the title, which is 13 Reasons I Retired in the Philippines and Why I Left America to Live in a Third World Country. Also note that off-topic comments will probably not be addressed. Now, here is the disclaimer for everything I'm about to say. And there has to be a disclaimer because although I did extensive research to some of the articles that I'm going to speak directly about, the information that was once on the internet regarding the articles that I post the name of and the general concept of, they're gone. They're off the internet. They've been scrubbed from the internet. Although 40,000 people were put out of work during one of the Department of Environmental Protection Agency's bans on a particular type of fish. I think it was the snail darter. All the information from those articles are completely gone off the internet. What had happened, and I'm going to discuss this, but this is just one thing to prove how we are being programmed to not remember truthful or half-truths that are printed in the newspapers because nothing can be proven anymore. They just scrub the information off the internet. So the disclaimer is that everything I'm going to talk about is from memory. The few articles that I could dig up on the subject matter have no bearing on the original event that actually occurred. It's played down to the point where I think it was 40,000 acres or 400,000 acres were shut down. The water was shut off because of a fish an endangered species fish. This is just one thing. And now, 40,000 people were put out of work, and orchids and farmland that was hundreds of years of agriculture in 6 weeks turned into a desert. The ground dried up, and all of the arbors of grapes and fruit trees and pears and plums and every type of tree, shrub, bush, and grapevine dried up and was nothing more than firewood after hundreds of years of cultivating the soil. So these are the things that occurred in America from the year 2008. We're also going to go back in history, and also the course of history And the facts about history are also gone off the internet according to what I remembered them to be when I wrote my book, Angels on the Ark. So that's the disclaimer. Everything I state is from memory, and I can't prove any of it. And if you can do the research and prove it, post the links and the articles on my page, and I will review that. But this is what has occurred to America, because that's all I can relate to. And there is no longer any ability to go back and research things, even things as monumental as Fukushima. All the information from the first 3 days and videos have been scrubbed off the internet. So let us begin. Why I moved from America to the Philippines is quite simple. I saw the writing on the wall. And the reason I saw the writing on the wall, so to speak, is because in my business in the Florida Keys as a licensed excavation contractor, I worked on average 110 days per year. So I had off several hundred days to do research for my book and also read about things that were occurring in the world. And during the course of researching my book, aka Angels on the Ark, where there will be a link below, I looked back more specifically towards the origins of banking and monies. And what I discovered, this is the first reason that I moved out of America, because the plan, what I discovered, was a century of U.S. presidents marching to the beat of a new world order. Okay, that's a general statement, but President Woodrow Wilson establishing the deceptively covert privatized central banking cabal. And the link for that, I'm going to post right now if you want to review it. And I'm also going to check to see if my live stream is still up. I'm going to post that right now. Okay. And then that is now posted, and you can review that link. That was one of the first articles that I ran across while looking for information about the economy of the world and where it was headed, because I was already aware that there was a plan long before, and this is something I discuss only in my book, Angels on the Ark, because this can't be proven. But in pictographic format on the dollar bill, we're not going to talk much about the dollar bill. The beginning of the recorded history starts at the Great Pyramid, which is the left sphere, or compass, or circle, where the Great Pyramid depicts the beginning of the history of what is now published. Okay, but it's not the beginning of history, because the Earth goes back billions of years. And it's my personal opinion that we've had many, 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 many societies with a lot more technology than we have today, built up and destroyed. I can't prove that, but you can research enough stuff on the internet to know that we've had greater technology than we have now hundreds of thousands of years ago. That's a little bit off topic, but that's the truth. So the beginning of recorded history is the Great Pyramid. In the central portion of the dollar bill is what is known as "In God We Trust," which would represent the timestamp of 0033, because that represents "In God We Trust," or Jesus, and he is known to be lived 33 years. So you have the difference between BC and AD, or 0000 or 0033. Excuse me. So that's the middle part of the history, and the end of history in the right compass or sphere. Everything in the right compass or sphere has to do with death or destruction. Everything in the left compass with the pyramid has to do with life. All of that is discussed in my book. I have thousands of challenges to the most successful and supposedly noteworthy people in the world to challenge me to prove that what I just said is not true. It is true. And no one has ever taken my challenge. And more importantly, no one has ever reposted any of the things I state about the dollar bill, more specifically the skull and bones on the dollar bill and the owl on the dollar bill, and the fact that the entire reverse of the $1 bill is the Ark of the Covenant. You can read my book for $2.99. There's a link under the eagle on my homepage. It's 1,900 plus pages. No one has ever challenged me in 8 years, and I've sold more than 4,000 copies. So I saw the writing on the wall, and I needed to find another place to live, and I did my research, and I found the Philippines to be the up-and-coming so-called next first world country, and it's going to happen here in Asia, and it's probably going to be the Philippines. Now, another gentleman named Bo Knows Entertainment, who's on YouTube and a personal friend of mine for 8 years, and I discussed the systematic plan to remove all wealth from American middle class every 7 to 12 years. Could be more or less a couple of years. But every 7 to 12 years, there's some sort of economic disaster. And it has all been planned by what I call beings that may or may not even be human, that control the wealth of the world, the governments of the world, and the religious institutions of the world. Many people agree with me. I discussed this in great detail in the book that I wrote, aka Angels on the Ark by Michael Fauzi. Now, moving on to the next topic, the cover-ups that have been occurring since the year 2008, which are a little bit more provable than what President Truman did 100 years ago. But basically, to put that in a very, very, excuse me, President Woodrow Wilson, to put that in a very brief bracket of what he did, was he implemented a plan, and the link I posted is to overthrow the American banking institutions, to bring it into a private sector. Some call it the Bank of England. Some call it the establishment that makes the money, the Federal Reserve. Either way, the plan was to take over the American money system by within 100 years. His plan was devised in 1911. It was implemented in 2012, and by 2012, 100 years later, the plan was complete and finished underneath Mr. Obama's presidency. Now, the plans, in brief, were to within 100 years have control of the American banking industry and create a new world order by 2012. And that did happen. That's pretty provable. You can see it in today's headlines with Mr. George Soros. You can see it all throughout the Obama administration. All of that is not debatable to anybody with a memory and a brain. Okay, now I'm going to give you an example of how the economy was destroyed on purpose, which is one of the reasons why I left America. Okay. My political viewpoint, as you know, is off the chart, but I can't post my political videos anymore. But if you were to go and become a member of my Patreon account, now I'm not asking you to become a member, I'm just telling you that if you became a member of my Patreon account at the $10 or above level, where several hundred videos of my interpretation of what Mr. Obama was going to do to the country were actually prescient in my observations. No one who has become a Patreon member has ever said anything except that my observations were bang on, prescient in nature, correct beyond the realm of normalcy, that I've nailed everything that was going on through my political comedy videos that I cannot post on YouTube because now they are deemed hate speech against political pundits, more specifically Mr. Obama and Mr. McCain, okay, Kane, okay. So those videos are available on my, and you could see that what I just stated is very, very much provable now. So digressing back to Bono's Entertainment, him and I discussed back in 2010 when we first met that one of the plans to systematically remove the wealth from the American middle class was actually performed and occurred on Mr. Obama's watch in the year of 2009. Now, I researched this subject. And the subject is government shuts off water to California farms in controversial effort to help threatened species. Okay, now I'm going to post this link right now, and you can, if you have a memory of what happened in 2009, I'm going to tell you what I know that happened in 2009. Okay, I can't get that link to go. Yes, I can't get the link that I just posted to load up. Okay, so I'll post a different link. Okay. Okay, I'll try to. I can't get that one to load either. That's amazing. The two links I want to post, I'm not allowed to post. It's 200. It's okay. Okay, I have to remove 25 characters. Okay, let's see if we could do that. Okay, I think I got it now. The beginning of the name of the title of the article is gone, but the rest of the link, if you press the link, I will post. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to post the whole thing. I'm going to post. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to post the whole, only the name, not the link. I'm going to post the name because it's less than 225 characters. And then I'm going to post the link. Anybody who remembers this should also remember that during the course of this shutdown by the Department of Environmental Protection, 40,000 people lost their jobs. You try to find out any information about that on the internet, and it is completely gone. There is no mention of 40,000 people losing their jobs. And I don't know if my memory serves me correctly because there was a lot of fours involved in that. But I think 400,000 acres, the water to either 40,000 acres, which is probably more logical, or 400,000 acres was shut off because of an endangered fish about 2.5 inches long and the thickness of a pencil that served no biological or chemical or medical need. Mr. Obama shut the water off and put 40,000 farm workers out of work. This is part of the systematic destruction of the middle class. Not in my opinion, it is a fact. They are doing this on purpose. Can I prove it? No, because every article that would have showed me the exact details of what happened when the water was shut off is now scrubbed from the internet. Now, my memory says it was 40,000 or 400,000 acres the water was shut off to, of farms and grape orchards and pear trees and plum trees and lemon trees and orange trees. Basically the fruit basket of California, the water was shut off and 40,000 people were out of work within a week. The orchards and farms that were being farmed for the last several hundred years turned from the most fertile farmland in America to a dust bowl, and then dried and cracked, and then there was a terrible wind, what they call the Santa Ana, and all the fertile soil just was blown away from where the once fertile lands were. And you can't find out word one about what happened, what the exact numbers. It talks about the water being shut off, but it doesn't give you how many acres. It doesn't give you how many people were affected. It doesn't say that it was the fruit and vegetable basket of America. Okay, it doesn't say any of the pertinent information. It's about 6 paragraphs where it used to be 6 pages. Okay, so one thing I should discuss about my intelligence. Okay, first and foremost, I may not appear to be smart, but if followed closely, the blatant in-your-face agenda to destroy America at all costs, which dates back to President Woodrow Wilson, if you could do all the research, if you had the time, even though I might not be so smart speaking-wise, this is all factual. And no one has the time that I had to devote to this because I devoted several thousand hours to writing my book. Okay, and in that time, I've discovered so many things that were just wrong with the way America was going, and that's where I finalized my conclusion to move to the Philippines. But an even more prescient subject matter that I made videos about in 2010, and at the time I didn't save the videos in a separate file. I'm going to tell you a story that I spoke about in one of my previous videos. Mr. Obama, during his first 3 weeks in office, the day he walked into his office, he ordered the printing presses, wherever they make money, at the Federal Reserve, underneath whatever agency it is, he ordered the printing presses to start printing big bills, 50s and 100s. A friend of mine named Gary, I was talking to him just before he got sequestered to go to Washington for about a month. They ran those printing presses for seven days a week, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 3.5, 4 weeks. It was never clear what Gary finalized, but he told me he was going to be gone a month. At the end of that month, I remember reading newspaper articles that Mr. Obama printed $17 billion in large bills. Gary confirmed that. That's what the number was several years later. Gary worked for Pitney Bowes, and Pitney Bowes makes similar equipment that prints stamps as opposed to what prints dollar bills and $100 bills. And he was an expert, and he was called in to work between 14 and 16 hours a day to keep the machines running. At the end of the time period when the money was printed, there were articles stating that Mr. Obama printed about $17 billion. However, no one knows where even $1 of that money was spent. And here we go. This is the ultimate conspiracy theory. It's not nowhere on the internet. This is my theory. This was my theory at the time. This is what I think happened to that 17 billion. And this is why no one ever challenged Mr. Obama in anything he ever did with any seriousness. Okay? No one ever challenged him. Anybody that said, I'm going to challenge his birth certificate with Joe Arpaio, that man is a government shill, in my opinion. 8 years, Joe Arpaio has been challenging Mr. Obama's birth certificate, and every 6 weeks they come out with a new factoid that doesn't allow them to print all the information that they had, even though they've been talking about doing it since Mr. Obama was in office at the 1 year point. Okay, they're never going to come up with anything for Mr. Obama's birth certificate being fake because they're part of the shill system that is pulling the wool over the American people's eyes. Now, I might not speak so elegant, but that's a fact. 8 years, Joe Arpaio has been talking about the birth certificate issue. In 8 years, he has never published a single thing that is provable in a court of law. How many millions of dollars has he received? No one knows. How much publicity has he received? Quite a bit. And the other fellow that he works with, Mike, supposedly a detective, FBI, whatever the guy is, they're both shills for the government. Okay, that's just one thing that nobody ever challenged Mr. Obama on. The second thing that no one ever challenged Mr. Obama on is where was the $17 billion going? Now, here's my theory. This is the Michael Fazio theory that ends all, the end all be all conspiracy theory by Michael Fazio. I think they took that $17 billion and they took little boxes. I don't know how big the boxes were, maybe a little bigger than this, probably a little bigger than this, and more likely about something about this size. And they took these boxes and they put 50,000, 100,000, or they put 100,000 in a box like this is no problem. You could fit 180 to $200,000 in this box, no problem. Okay, I think they put boxes with little pink ribbons on the boxes, and I think they handed them out to every judge, every politician, every lawyer that might have a say in the legal system at the time and in the future, every politician, every mayor, every gubernatorial candidate, every single person that worked in government, every single politician, whether they wanted it or not, they were offered it, and they said, and then if they didn't take the money, then they gave them an ultimatum. Don't take the money, but do what we tell you to do anyway, because there would be dire consequences. That's where I believe the money went to, because no one ever challenged Mr. Obama. And that's a fact. Nothing has ever stuck to Mr. Obama. He's more of a Teflon Don type of guy than John Gotti. And John Gotti was really hard to nail down. But Mr. Obama is never going to see the inside of an institution ever. Neither is Miss Hillary Clinton. Ms. Hillary Clinton. They are never going to see a day in jail. I don't care even if they get convicted and it's on the news. They will put them in a cell. They'll put CIA or FBI agents outside the cell. They'll release them, put them in Guatemala somewhere, or Argentina or Venezuela in some sort of compound, and they'll live the life of luxury for the rest of their natural lives. They will never spend a day in jail unless they are photographed in the jail cell, and then they will be in solitary confinement in a separate part of the prison, and then they'll get released, and they'll live out their lives with friends available, planes available, lavish foods, and lavish lifestyles. There is no way you're ever going to make me believe that these people are ever going to see a real day in jail, eating jail food. Not going to happen unless it's for publicity for a few days, and then that's it. They're not going to. Don't you ever get your hopes up that any of these people are going to jail, because they're not. Okay, now that might be a conspiracy theory above, but where the money went, no one knows. Will anybody ever find out where the money went? You can't even Google $17 billion printed by Mr. Obama. You can't find one iota of information on the internet, not even one small piece of information that Obama printed money and put the printing presses in gear for the first 3 to 4 weeks of his presidency. It's gone. It's scrubbed off the internet. That's not a conspiracy theory. Anybody with a memory remembers that. Also, Mr. Obama. Now we're moving on to the next topic. This is another reason why I moved to the Philippines. Obama was the 44th POTUS, but he positioned 44 czars. But this number 44 is a big number in the cabal system, apparently. 44 czars, CZARS, from the most controversial backgrounds, possibly heading up agencies that were specifically devoted to destroy America. And we once knew it, and he got away with the plundering of America. Okay, moving ahead once again and sidestepping a few years, in 2004, because we're going to digress back to 2004, and we're going to digress back to my topic that the economy is controlled by something, beings, men, maybe people that are not necessarily human, 100% human. Maybe they are sinister beings. Maybe they are spiritual beings. Maybe they are future beings. I don't know. But they work out of the Vatican. That's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. And these people created a recession in 2008 or 2009. But digressing back to 2004, my accountant told me to sell my 3 properties. There is going to be, by 2006, because there is going to be a recession or another depression greater than the Great Depression. And at the time, I had 3 properties, and the value of my mortgages were growing $1,000 a month per property on the 2 big ones. And yet I didn't listen to my accountant, and he didn't listen to his own advice, and none of my friends listened to the accountant, even though he knew there was going to be an economy. He sold off some of his properties, but he had 14 properties. Okay, so he sold off like 6 of those, the 6 smallest ones. And then when the economy collapsed, he lost the other 8 anyway. He kept 1 house for himself. So he didn't listen to his own advice, but he was told the economy was going to crash in 2008, 2009, and right on the money, Mr. Obama became president, and it happened. On that day, on the day that I saw the market start to go down, where I couldn't even sell my houses underwater, so to speak, from the mortgage, that was the day in 2009 I stopped paying my mortgages and started planning my move to the Philippines. That was all the proof I needed that it was time to implement the plan I had since I was 25 years old to move to the Philippines and end this ridiculous and endless work cycle where I was working only 110 days a year, but sometimes I would work 7 days a week for 12 hours a day without taking a day off for 2 or 3 weeks. And it was just too much stress. So at that point, I put my monies together and said I could live in the Philippines for X amount of years if I stopped paying my mortgage and earn a certain amount of money and then sell off what I already have in far as material goods. I had backhoe, I had Bobcat, I had Bobcat trailer, I had a backhoe trailer, I had a dump truck, I had several trenching machines, I had several drilling rigs for the Bobcat. I had hundreds of pieces of equipment that I could sell off, and that's what I did in order to save money to move to the Philippines. So you people, what everything that I said to you is to some of you people that are new to my channel, you look at me like I'm some kind of ignorant, ignorant construction laborer. I'm not. I researched this stuff. I have a memory for this stuff, and I know what I said in all my previous statements to be true, although I can't prove a word of it because it's been scrubbed from the internet. And that's as simple as it gets. Moving on to the next topic. I salvaged what I could by selling my equipment, which I just stated. Now, why I moved to the Philippines? There's many reasons, but the primary reason I moved to the Philippines is because where I lived in Key Largo allowed me to swim for 5 or 6 months a year without a wetsuit on. Here in the Philippines, the water temperature allows you to swim all year, anytime you want. In America, the water got really cold in the wintertime. You don't want to be in the water in the wintertime, even in the Florida Keys. So the Philippines had the water I wanted. It had the reef structures that I wanted for scuba diving and snorkeling. It had the white sand beaches that I wanted to live on. You only live X amount of years, and I am going to die living on a white sand beach in the Philippines. However, and whenever that happens, I'm okay with that. But that's why I moved to the Philippines. I like swimming, I like scuba diving, I like snorkeling, and the Philippines provides all of that at an inexpensive price for me, because now I live on a white sand beach with the most beautiful reef in Bohol, right behind my house, and scuba diving is available from any one of over 100 different dive shops at a discounted rate for myself and an inexpensive rate for foreigners who come here from like $65 $70 for the first tank and an additional $70 for the second tank, which is a little steep. But if you're on vacation, $150 for a day of scuba diving is reasonable. It's quite steep for any Filipino to ever be able to afford. But if you own your own equipment and you live next to a reef, it's the cost of an air fill. And that's it. That's the primary reason. The other secondary reason is the price of food. That's the secondary reason. It's simple living, simple food styles, easy to afford. Okay, now I'm going to go back. It wasn't to necessarily meet a woman. If people come here to meet a younger woman, and I wanted to meet a woman between the ages of 24 and 31. Said this in my other videos, and start a family. And I couldn't find a woman in that age bracket. Eventually, I met Daisy Mae, who was 22. Now, I've been with Daisy Mae for over 2.5 years now. But that was not my primary reason to move to the Philippines. I like swimming. I like scuba diving. I have several hundred. I have between 700 and 1,000 dives. And scuba diving, that much more on top of diving. So it's what I like to do. It's what I did in America. I did it quite a bit here. I have a lot of videos up to that effect. And that's the main reason I moved here. Now, I'm going to go on to a new topic. Those are some more reasons I moved to the Philippines. However, what you need to understand is that I also understood that the Philippines was going to be the next up-and-coming part of planet Earth, or flat plane Earth, depending on your point of view. Now I'm gonna give you a little supposition. I'm gonna give you a little theory, and I'm going to explain to you the economic growth of the Philippines. Another reason that I saw the writing on the wall long before anybody else did. Okay, I'm going to read this directly as I wrote it. Adding to what some people call, I'm going to start it again. Adding to what some people call supposition and or theory, I followed the economic growth of the Philippines and discovered there were large amounts of money coming from other Asian countries such as China and Korea and Japan. Then, after moving to the Philippines, I saw this actually become no longer supposition, but in fact. Now, I'm going to tell you something about my next 7 videos, which are made in an area called Alona Beach. In the next 7 videos that I'm going to post over the next 7 days of Alona Beach, we're going to walk into the entrance of Alona Beach, and you're going to see construction everywhere. And I have videos of Alona Beach from 2014, and 70% of everything you see on my walk through Alona Beach was nothing more than a lot with weeds in it. But now, in this series of 7 videos, you're going to see the fastest economic growing area in the Philippines. Nowhere else in the Philippines is the economic structure of a small and finite area growing as fast as it is Alona Beach. No, so if you would be so kind as to actually view these videos, you will see a tremendous influx of Korean stores, Japanese stores, and Chinese stores. And they make it more obvious than you would care to look and see, because they don't put Korean store up on the name of their store where you can read this is a Korean store. They put it in Korean with no English words and no Philippines words. Japanese, the same thing. Chinese, the same thing, because they no longer care whether you can read their signs. They are taking over the Philippines economically, and more importantly, the infrastructure and the construction of new hotels and food stores and food supply stores. The Asian population, Korea, Japan, and Chinese, as I just stated, is taking over the Philippines. Okay, so in this 1 kilometer street and oceanfront business walkthrough known as Alona Beach. While viewing my videos, you will see 15% of the ownership of most businesses are owned from Korean, Chinese, and Japanese. There was one Korean store with the sign that said Korean food in 2014, and that's it. Now you can count 25 Japanese, Korean, or Chinese stores with only their language on the storefront. And that's okay, because if the Philippines want to let these people run their businesses here, I'm okay with it. I don't have a problem with it at all. All I do have a problem with is that the Philippines people, this is their culture, this is their heritage that's being taken away from them. It's no skin off my back, because I don't really care so much, but I do care about one thing. Okay, all of the big malls are owned by Chinese, Filipino ownership. The S&M Mall, and I also think the BQ Mall is owned by uh, a dual citizen, but I can't be sure of that. I researched it. I can't find any information on it. But the SM Mall is definitely owned by a Chinese, Filipino dual citizenship or dual nationality person. But the thing that really upsets me about that is because they're charging 6 or 7 times what they really need to charge to make a profit. Okay, you go into the ICM Mall, which is owned outright, I think, also by a Chinese person, but I can't be sure of that. I really can't be sure about a lot of what I'm saying now, because there's no information on the internet when you Google it. But what I discussed with one of the people that work there in a supervisory position is that the owner is not necessarily 100% Filipino. But be that as it may, the Philippines, let's just say that the ICM Mall and the BQ Mall are owned by Filipinos. They're not allowing even their fellow Filipinos to make money. That's what upsets me about the big business money here in the Philippines. You go into the ICM Mall and you go look at, they don't have microwavable Tupperware. So let's say this was a piece of Tupperware. They don't make Tupperware that you can put into the microwave here. You can't buy it. They don't make microwavable plates. It's all plastic. You put the plates in there, they get hot, they blow up after a minute if there's nothing on the plate. Okay. The only way you can get something to put in the microwave is to buy what we call ceramic or clay dishes or china. And the china dishes, a 9-inch dish is $9. So for one plate, one round plate, $9. For a coffee cup, $6 ceramic. For a 14-inch oval platter, $12. What Filipino can afford to spend $14, which is the equivalent of 4 days' pay, to buy one plate? This is what I find disturbing about the big businesses, either be they Filipino or Chinese or Korean. The prices across the board don't allow the average Filipino to earn enough money to buy something of that should be an everyday convenience. Having a porcelain ceramic dinner plate should be something that a Filipino could afford to put into the microwave. I've thrown out 5,000, maybe 10,000, maybe 20,000 ceramic plates when I used to do general contracting. We'd go into a restaurant and we just throw out everything in the restaurant except the stainless steel tables. We'd recycle those, and the sinks. But everything else was junk. The forks, the knives, we would give to one of the other local places in 10-pound bags or 20-pound bags of forks and knives. Just give it away so I didn't have to throw it away. But they don't allow the other people, the foreigners, the Koreans, the Japanese, the Chinese, and the Filipino business, big successful businesses, they don't allow Filipinos to earn a living to buy stuff. Okay, that's the end of that part of my rant. Now, going past Chinese, Korean, and Japanese and Indian in America of Indian culture, the Chinese culture, Chinese business owners in America, Japanese business owners in America, Indian business owners in America, and Korean business owners in America. One of the more disturbing things about those four people is that in the Philippines, they hire Filipinos to do their labor. But in America, a Chinese restaurant will never hire one American. I don't care if you were born in America and you live in America for 75 years. In your whole lifetime, you might see 2 or 3 Americans working in a Chinese restaurant. You might never see an American working in a Japanese restaurant, and you will certainly never see an American working in a Korean restaurant. 1, they don't speak the language. 2, they only hire their own. 3, it's not discriminatory against Americans for a minority culture to hire their own kind. So you have a Chinese restaurant with 100 employees, 0 Americans. Same with Korean and Japanese. But you have an Italian restaurant with 100 employees, and you have to hire every other culture in the world. Blacks, Hispanics, Chinese, Korean, Japanese, Hindu, Muslim, um, Sudanese, Asia, every Asiatic country. You have to hire by law after you have 20 employees in some businesses, 50 in another. You have to hire by law a certain percentage of other cultures, but not so with the Chinese, Korean, Japanese, or Indian culture. An Indian can have a 7-Eleven with 35 people in it. They can have 35 Indians. Koreans, Chinese, and Japanese, the same things. They don't ever have to hire an American. That's unfair business. And going into unfair business, and another reason why I moved from America, is I used to have a little business on the side that I used to make quite a bit of money from. I used to transport children from the parent, the natural parent of the child, to their grandparent or their mother and father. Let's say a mother had possession of a child, and the child and the mother lived in New York, because this is the scenario that I'm going to use. And I grew up with the mother and the father. In fact, I introduced the mother and father to get married when I was 19 years old, and they got married a few months later. Okay, so I had this little business where I would take Mary's child to Texas, and Mary's child would sit next to me on the plane, and I'd bring the child to Texas, and then I'd stay at the grandmother's house. When I went to Texas, in the last time in 1987 or 1988, I went to the Kennedy Space Center. And in the Kennedy Space Center, what I learned is that every business in the Kennedy Space Center was owned by Chinese, Japanese, Korean people of descent of Chinese, Japanese, or Korean. No Americans worked in the Kennedy Space Center. So here we have, if you wanted to buy a card that said Kennedy, NASA, anything, you had to buy it from a Chinese person. If you wanted to buy food, you had to buy it from a Korean or Chinese or Indian person. No Americans worked in any of the venues that sold anything at all in the NASA Space Center. You wanted to buy pictures? NASA, you had to buy it from an. That's unfair business. But that set me off saying something's wrong here. And by the year 2003 or 2004, there was a plan to sell the American road system and the toll booths, the toll roads, including the toll booths, to the Chinese. And I do believe that in 2006, 2007, I-75, which is 100 miles straight road across what is known as an ecosystem called the Florida Everglades. It runs straight 75 miles. There are toll booths. There are some small areas to get on and off for food and gas, but everything on that road was sanctioned to be sold to a Chinese company, including the tolls to get on the road and the tolls to get off the road. And the tolls start long before the Everglades and end long after the Everglades. But that road system was supposed to be sold to Chinese. And so that would mean that Chinese people own the American road system, and the tolls I'm paying go to a Chinese business. And then they have to take care of the roads. And based on the terrible road system repairs that we have in America, known as the DOT, I'm sure the Chinese did a better job. So that's not the problem. The problem is, why did it have to be sold to Chinese people? That's the problem. Why wasn't it sold to a European country? Why wasn't it sold to a Germanic country? Why wasn't the Chinese? I'll tell you why. They have so much money, you couldn't count it. If you live to be 1,000 years old, Chinese people are very successful. They pay more. Therefore, things that have a value are paid more for, and they make it up on the end run. So that's another reason I moved to the Philippines. Okay? Now I'm going to... Okay. So the time is getting close as to when the people in the chat window are now going to be allowed to ask me questions if the chat hasn't closed down. I don't know if it did or not. I could be talking for the last 20 minutes to myself here. Okay, so for those of you who wish to know about certain locations to retire in the Philippines, I'll give you what information I can. Questions and answers, please be specific as to what your likes are if you're looking for lifestyle in the Philippines, and I will give you my point of view. If you need medical attention, if you want to go to an area where there's scuba diving, if you just want to swim, put it in the comments section on the chat window so I know what you're looking for, and I'll address it if I can. Now, I want to go one more topic, and we're going to the comments. Two more. If you want to see my political points of view about the worst politicians that ever lived, they're only on my Patreon account. The link is on my homepage under the Eagle. And I'm also providing a link in the commentary that I just read. I'm going to post word for word verbatim what I wrote, not what I spoke. Okay. Okay, there's this topic here. On a side note, I should be the most famous person on the planet for my discoveries of the skull and bones on the dollar bill and the owl on the dollar bill that proves, and the Ark of the Covenant on the dollar bill that proves there is no separation of church and state and never was. I like to throw that in because I should be famous beyond anything you could imagine, beyond anything I could ever dream of. I have proven that the United States government is run in conjunction with two other agencies, aka the Square Mile of London, the banking section known as the Square Mile of London or the Bank of England. It has an equal and similar partner known as the Bohemian Grove Society, which runs the American War Machine, and that's controlled by the Vatican, which has the largest pictograph on the dollar bill, aka the Ark of the Covenant. So the Ark of the Covenant's on the dollar bill, proven in my book, Angels on the Ark. The Skull and Bones from the Yale Skull and Bones is on the dollar bill. The Yale Skull and Bones runs the Bank of England, and the Bohemian Grove Owl is on the dollar bill, which runs the American War Machine. I made this discovery. No one on earth will ever dare make a video to prove that what I said is right. No one wants me on their television shows. No one will answer my email. Even challenges that were as high as $50,000 in the year 2010 were never sent hundreds of emails to hundreds of so-called newspapers. George Norrie, Jordan Maxwell, Alex Jones, David Icke, David Wilcox, Michael Savage, Michael Rivero, hundreds of emails to these people, hundreds, and no one ever addressed even one challenge that I had. And Jordan Maxwell at the time was so broke he couldn't afford to pay his medical expenses, and I wagered him $50,000 to come and debate me for a few hours in a public forum, and I would pay for everything if he won. And if he lost, he has to put up his $50,000, which he didn't have. And I still would have went ahead with the wager just to prove him wrong, because he is a government shill, in my opinion. That's a touchy subject for me. I should be worth $100 million, and instead I have to worry about super chats to go out to dinner. Not that I worry about it, but instead a 10 or 20 or $40 super chat is a big deal, so that Daisy and I can go out for dinner, when I should be worth $100 million for my discoveries. Okay, now I will have some links for the catastrophes for 2008, 2012, elections, which I already put in. All right, I'm going to page down. I already posted that. And now I'm going to talk about the last topic. Sorry, this is the last topic. Engineered weather. Somebody put something about the firenadoes and tornadoes of fire in the chat window that I looked at 20 minutes ago. And they all bang on. That person understands that this is a systematic destruction of the middle class housing. Can't be anything else. There's no possible way for what occurred to not be man-made. Not possible. And here is the link for that. Okay. I'm going to give you the name. Well, I'm just going to give you a description of what it is. I'm going to post the description. Then I'm going to post the link. Hold on. You guys are all right. You guys were ahead of me on this because I hadn't got to it. And I wanted to get to it because I saw this modified weather create Hurricane Sandy. And there are very few people in this world that know more about natural weather than me that aren't actually licensed in the field. And why do I say that? Because I lived on a barge. I lived on the water since I was 5 years old. I lived on sailboats. I lived on small cuddy cabin boats. I lived on barges. I lived on big barges. I lived on crane barges. I lived on towing scows. I watched the weather. And the weather doesn't do the things that it's doing in today's world. It just doesn't do those things. Hurricane Sandy started in Florida, and the weather got colder as it moved up the coast for 10 or 11 days. And each day the hurricane moved at about 6 or 7 miles an hour. Each day it got colder. And each day the hurricane got bigger. That's not possible. Hurricanes don't work like that. And by the time it got to New York, it was so big, it caused more damage. More people lost their houses. Several trillion dollars in money, several trillion dollars in real estate, but trillions and trillions of dollars in monies were lost in antiques and other valuables. They took the money away from you, so you couldn't even sell your antiques, your jewelry, your gold. Your houses were destroyed. The stuff got buried underneath millions of square cubic yards of sand and ocean on the coast. Entire coastal areas were just gone. Gone. They were gone. They didn't even exist anymore. Nothing. No streets, no pipes, no fence posts, no telephone poles. Those houses had safes. They had vaults. They had billions and trillions of dollars worth of antique chandeliers and glassware and crystalware and cash. Trillions of dollars they took away from you for Hurricane Sandy. And they did that on purpose. And you people are too stupid to understand that a storm doesn't move from a warm area to a cold area for 11 or 12 days and get progressively bigger. It should have been completely zero by the time it got to New York, because the weather was in the 30s or high 20s or low 30s. It was actually snowing just the day before in most parts of New York State. And yet it happened, and they did it, and you don't get it. The planned destruction of the middle class of America has been implemented, and it occurs on a daily basis. And I'm laughing because you people are probably sitting back saying, this guy is a nut job. And not a person anywhere in this world can prove a thing I said wrong. Some of the facts are not bang on, but everything I just stated about Hurricane Sandy, it's not possible. It's not possible for these tornadoes to occur. They burn cars and houses, and they leave little shrubbery around the houses and the cars. That's not normal. They're slipping it in, baby. They are slipping it in. They are slipping it in. That's right. They are number one. Remember that. They are number one. They rule this world. You think I'm crazy, and I think most of you people that think I'm crazy are stone stupid. That's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it. Because you don't understand, baby. They're number one, and you don't count. And now I'm going to the comments section. Thanks for watching in case we get shut off. Any topic in the chat section that doesn't have something directly to do with what I discussed is not going to be addressed. You want to go through your life, living a life drinking, sipping Red Horse and wine, knock yourself out. But anything other than that's the last comment I'm going to address that's not directly related to what I discussed, and or the future of America, the future of Philippines, how much it costs to live here, where to retire, what you want. Those questions will be addressed. Anything else doesn't exist in my mind. Skip it out. Now that millionaire cycle, that's a bunch of nonsense. This stuff is controlled. Do some research. Just do some. I'm not being sarcastic. I'm telling you. Look up weather modification. They've been able to modify the weather since Tesla. Tesla showed them how to modify the weather, but they've been doing it since they made monsoons in Vietnam, where they made 18 inches of raindrop in 6 hours. They can make weather anytime they want, any day of the week. They can make any weather they want. They can make tornadoes. They can make hurricanes. They can make monsoons. They can make hot. They can make cold. They can make any kind of weather they want. They can do it on command. Just look up weather modification, and there's 10,000 articles, Skip. It's a good question, and it has to do with today's topic. But there's 10,000 articles on the internet. The one I linked, 3 comments up from your comment, tells you it's an hour-long documentary about what's going on in California. Once you watch that, you'll never ask me that question again. You're welcome to ask it as many times as you don't get it. But once you watch that little documentary by A Plain Truth, you're going to see that there's no way they can explain the fires in California. They can't explain Hurricane Sandy. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. Nothing ever occurred like that in history. Hurricanes can't go from hot to cold to cold to cold to cold to freezing. Hurricanes don't occur in freezing weather. We have blizzards, but we don't have 150-mile-an-hour hurricanes with 7 to 10 foot tides higher than normal. Plus, it happened on a full moon. It was total destruction. I lost $1 million in equipment because of Hurricane Sandy. Okay, $1 million in equipment and antiques I lost because of Hurricane Sandy. Okay, I've lost more money because of what the government has done directly to the people. $1 million in New York and $2.3 million worth of property, all planned in advance by the things, entities, beings, people, animals that control this world. Jim Byers, I have information. Okay. The fourth arrival will determine the path they take. It's a little bit cryptic, Jim Byers. Okay, now, pretty sure you're talking about aliens. And I am 100% on board with other species from other places coming to this world. I personally think this place is a giant mine, and they just make us grow stuff for them, and they take it away in huge ships, and they live forever in distant galaxies. Okay, we mine trillions of tons of ore and minerals. You don't know what comes out of the ground, and you don't know what uses they have for it. But I personally believe this is a conspiracy theory to end all. I believe that beings, creatures, entities, spiritual entities, whatever, aliens, call them whatever you will, I believe they control this planet. And they allow the people in the Vatican and the United States government to look like they control this planet. There's something much bigger than anything we're going to ever be able to prove. And unless you've reached higher states of consciousness known as enlightenment, you wouldn't even understand that these entities exist. But if you ever did reach a state of enlightenment, you'd be able to watch them walk down the block and say, wow, that entity is not from this world, and you'd be able to tell by looking at them and seeing their aura. Off topic altogether, but that's the truth. The question and answer portion begins now. I know everything. So why don't you tell us what you know? Yes, Jeff Spicoli. I was talking about Superstorm Sandy and how it was an unnatural event, that it moved from warm weather to cold weather to colder weather to colder weather to colder weather to 28 to 30 degree weather, and grew every day when it should have been dissipating. It was increasing exponentially. Impossible, according to any weather. Go look at any weather book. It never happened in history before. It never will happen. Might happen again, but it never happened in history. There's no meteorologist that they explained it with all this nonsense. They're all in on it. They're all government shills. Remember that $17 billion I talked about in the beginning? It went to people in charge of the news media, judges, politicians, lawyers, congressmen, Senate, people that own Senate seats, the Supreme Court. It went to every major industry in the world, entertainment, music. It all went to them so they would agree with the current narrative, whatever narrative that is, like it or not. That's the truth. Mike, Pads, I think you've asked this question in almost every live stream I've done. Well, somebody's asked it. Are you reading the comments? Because I don't mind answering the question, but you have been on several live streams where this topic has been discussed in great detail. Have you watched the live stream after I posted it? I mean, come on. You want to ask? I could see somebody else asking that question, but you've been on at least 5 of my live streams where I discussed how much money it costs to live in the Philippines. Have you watched my live streams after I posted them? Have you read the comments? You can live on $1,000 a month in the Philippines. The answer to your question is yes. 2 people could live on $1,200 a month comfortably if you don't go out to dinner so much. I don't know why I make the live stream. I post it up on my video channel. I leave it there for people to watch. There are some people that watch it from start to finish, but why would they want to watch something for 2 or 3 hours? I don't know. But I give you that information on the last 5 live streams that I did. People asked me that question and I addressed it, and here it is again. If it was a new person, I'd understand, but I don't understand why you are on every live stream and don't understand that the question has been addressed multiple times. That I don't understand. Now, please, you can live on $1,200 a month. Does that answer your question? Yes, the last video I did, I went in great detail. Cost of everything. How much? Gas, electric, food, transportation, immigration, ICR cards. I went through every detail in 2 or 3 of my last live streams, and here the question pops up again. And you've probably asked that question. The question has probably been asked on 1,000 other channels and answered and addressed on 1,000 other channels. You don't need $1,200 a month to live in the Philippines. If you're a single man, you could do it on 8 and live comfortably. Thank you. Jim Spicoli. Yeah, Jim, it snowed. It snowed the day before. We have a house in New York, which was ground zero for it in New York, and we had 7 feet of water in our basement. Actually, the tide went up. Tide went up in Howard Beach. The tide went up 7 to 9 feet. That was the closest estimate I could get from the watermark inside the garage where the car sat. It sat higher than it sat at the height of the window of the car in the garage. So that was 3 feet, and another 3.5, 4 feet down to the natural high water mark. So yeah, it was snow just before. All right, I'm gonna. Jim Spicoli, yeah, he agrees with me. There's nothing not to agree. Can't have a storm like that. Not meteorology wise, it's not possible. It's just not possible. Somebody asked me, what's my take on the honeybee logo on the 20 peso bill? For all the research I did on dollar bills, if you said to me, I will give you 100 million cash US dollars to tell me if there is or isn't a honeybee on the 20 peso bill, what I would tell you is I'm going to take a 50-50 chance at this because I didn't know it was there. I never looked at a 20 peso bill. To be honest with you, I would just have to, if you asked, is it or isn't it there for 100 million pesos, I'd have to take a guess. I never saw it. I never looked. I never looked at a Filipino bill. Doesn't interest me in the least. Sorry about that. Not something that would normally come into my my mindset. Skip Bedell. You could live on 500 US dollars if you lived on the Big Island. You ain't living on $500 here. It ain't gonna happen. It just ain't gonna happen unless you plan on eating rice 3 times a day. You are not coming to the Philippines and living on $500 a month. Nobody can do it. Everybody says they tried it and they might have done it for a few months, but you ain't coming here. I'll just bust it down for you. Gonna cost you $60 a month for your immigration and ICR card. That's 60. Gonna cost you $150. Okay, it's gonna cost you $150 a month for rent. You ain't getting any kind of rent for less than $150 a month. Nothing with a door and a window, that's for sure. So you're up to $210 a month. You're gonna spend $100 a month for food. That's $310 a month. You got another 20 for electric and water. So that's $330 a month. You still need to get from where you are to where you're going. You're going to spend another $40 a month on transportation. You're up to $350. What does that leave you? $150 a month to live and eat? You're going to. What if you want to go to? What if you want to go to a restaurant? It's a $5 meal. You have a girl. You ain't 2 people ain't going to have. Well, let's say you took a girl out for dinner and you spent $20. Well, you're up to $370 plus transportation, another $6. You're up to $375. You're going to live on 100, and now you got to figure amortized cost of airfare to leave the country if you're on immigration policy. You ain't living on $500 a month. You're going to live on rice, and that's it. And you can go out and get vegetables from the weeds that grow, that you're edible weeds. But $500 a month, you're not going to like it. Jeff Spicoli said he had 5 feet of water in his house during Hurricane Sandy, and his house was 3 feet off the ground. I know. Our house was 5 feet. The street was the crown of the street was 3 feet higher than the high water mark, and it came up 4.5 feet higher than that. So it came up 7.5 feet. And I don't know if the crown of the street is still 3.5 feet. That was a survey that was done back in the 80s. But because the ground settles in Howard Beach because it's on bog, everything settled. But it came up 7 feet. I know, Skip. I mean, Jeff, I know that. That's right, Jim. That's correct. So, does anybody else have any questions besides the cost of living? How much you need? If you're, I'll just bust it down for you again. You want to live here by yourself, not have a girlfriend. $700 would be the absolute bottom mark I would put on the. I wouldn't put. If you don't have $700 a month, you're not going to live here. In anything, maybe if you have meet a Filipino family that'll put you up for in a room for 1,000 pesos a month, you might be able to live on 500 for a few months. But you got to remember something. If you don't have a door and a window, you got mosquitoes. And people in America are not used to having mosquitoes 24/7. Forget about the mosquitoes. You need a refrigerator. Most people in a Nipa hut don't have a refrigerator. You're going to want a refrigerator, even if it's a small refrigerator. You're going to want a door and a window. You're going to have a mosquito net. And then every piece of food that you put down is going to, the ants in the Philippines drive you out of your mind. Okay? The ants in the Philippines alone will drive you out of your mind. We have red ants that are small that bite. We have red ants that are 3/8 of an inch long that bite. We have sugar ants that don't bite, the small little ones about 1/8 of an inch. And then we have big black ants that don't bite. We have fire ants too. Okay, the big ones that are more than 3/8 of an inch. All that stuff happens out in the province where you're gonna have a live in a Nipa hut. Okay, you're not gonna want to do it. $500 a month is not enough. Yeah, Skip. Yeah, okay, but look where you live. Look where you live. You live in the middle of nowhere. Okay, or Alzheimer's City. I don't know. I don't know where that is, but I'd imagine it's so far out that you. Go ahead. Look. Yeah, oh, Skip says it's true. I was pretty sure in my mind I know where that city is. Yeah, I just was saying if you want to live in a Nipa hut and you don't mind ants, cockroaches, snakes, mice, rats, there's no place you're gonna live. If you want to have a regular floor with a door and a window and a screen and an air con, you need $700 a month for one person. You can probably do it for 12 for two. Okay. William Carlin, yes. The rule is from the day of your arrival, you have 3 years and no more. So if you arrive on January 1st of, let's say, 2010, by December 31st of 2013, you need to be out of the country. One day over, and you break your immigration agreement, and the penalties are stiff. They may even renege your Filipino immigration status. So basically 6 months before the 3 years are up, you plan a trip at around the 3 months or 2 months before your 3 years are up, and you plan a trip out of the country. Could be Vietnam, could be Korea, could be Japan, could be any other country for 48 hours to guarantee that, you're not going to have any issues when you come back, and you come back. A trip to Vietnam and back, the time I researched it, I didn't go there, was $300 round trip. And then you have another couple of $100 for hotels and food. Say $500. It's going to cost one person $500. But if you're going to go back to America, you're looking at $1,500 for airfare and hotels and other. If you don't have a house, you're looking at another $1,500. So you need to leave before your 3 years are up. And I might add that before you buy your ticket to leave the Philippines, there's an additional tag that you need. It's called an exit visa or exit permit, where they check to make sure you didn't do anything illegal and falsify a check or a credit card or something like that. You have to go to a local facility that does specifically exit visas. They may do immigration also, but there's one in Cebu near the boat port. I'm sure there's one in Manila. Someone said there's one in Mindanao. I don't know where they are, but you need an exit visa that's validated a certain amount of weeks, and I don't remember how many weeks before your ticket is. You can't leave the country. Once you're in the country for 6 months, you need an exit visa to leave the country. So if you're here for 6 months and 2 days and they check at the airport, you're not allowed to leave the country. You lose the ticket. You lose whatever money it costs you to get to the airport and transportation. You lose whatever hotel reservations you have in advance. If you're here for more than 6 months and 1 day, they can tell you can't leave the country. So you need that exit visa. Red Eye Piranha, I've had enough of your garbage. I'm just going to make you an insignificant memory, an insignificant blip in history. Bye-bye. I have to go to work now. I just removed every single one of your comments with the push of a button because you keep posting ignorant stuff, because you are a troll. So watch this. Watch all your work, all your wordsmithing. Watch it all disappear. Bing, gone. That's my job for today. Danny Gordon is back, unless you get a 13A or an SSRV visa. Yeah? Well, we were talking about people that are here on immigration vacation status. Yeah, Danny, the last time I checked about getting one of those visas, you had to put 50,000 American dollars in a bank account. If you're over 50, I think it was 35,000 now, but you got to put it in there for a year, and you can't take it out. You can take it out early withdrawal, but there's penalties. They're stiff. To get the visa that's Danny talking about, what I did my research, you needed to have $50,000 in an American money put in a bank in the Philippines for a year. Now, if you wanted to use that money before the year was up, the bank would let you take the money out to buy a piece of land with a girl, put it underneath the girl's name or your wife's name. The bank would let you take the money. If you weren't married, you'd have to put it under a Filipino's name. If you weren't married, the bank would let you take out the money to buy a condominium. But in order to start the bank account, it was $3,500. To start a bank account, you had to pay the bank $3,500 to hold your $50,000. And let's say you put the $50,000 in and you came here and a month later you wanted to take it out. They took 10% of the money you wanted to withdraw early out of the bank account. But they didn't have to let you have the money. They could let you have all of it or none of it, depending on what you wanted it for. So say you needed $20,000, they give you 20,000 and take 10%. So it was so basically if you put 50,000 in and you took out 20,000, it was going to cost you $5,000 to take out that $20,000 because the 3,500 for the bank to start the bank account, $3,500 to start it. That's you have to give the bank $3,500 to start your account for that special account. Early withdrawals were 10% or more penalties. They didn't have to give you back all the money. And if the bank went bankrupt, there is no accountability on behalf of the bank. So if the bank went bankrupt for any reason whatsoever, you lose your $50,000. And that's that. I don't know about $85,000, Skip Adele. Hold on. Nina Sumanana Mana wants to know the cheapest amount of money that you could live on in the Philippines is $2.5 million a day. If you want to have a 3,000-acre palatial estate with 12 swimming pools, 3 airplanes, and a couple of airports on your property. How do you want to live? You want to live eating rice all day? 24/7 rice? You can live on $700 a month. You want to live comfortably? You need $1,200 a month. That's the answer to your question. These open questions. How much does it cost? How much do you pay for a pair of shoes, dude? How much do you pay for shoes? How much does a pair of shoes cost? How much? Well, how can you ask me? How do you want to live? How do you want to live? Do you want to eat rice all day? You live on $600, $700 a month. You want to eat meat twice a week, 3 times a week? Do you want to eat meat every day? You living by yourself? You living with your wife? You living with your girlfriend? Everything varies on that. There's been 1,000 people, I bet, in the last 6 months put up how much money it costs to live in the Philippines. But you just asked this question, how much does it cost to live in the Philippines? But I don't know. You want to own an airplane? You want your own airport? That's possible. It's going to cost you a little bit more if you buy your own a Learjet. Learjet's a little bit more money than tricycles. And tricycles are a little more money than hobbles. But it's a general question. 700 is the bare minimum. Nobody's living in the Philippines for less than $700 a month unless you live at the end of the outside of the end of the world in a province on a dirt floor. And then you could live for $500 a month with the cockroaches, the ants, the beetles, the bugs, the snakes, the rats, the mice, no screens on the window, no running water, basically no electric and no refrigerator. $500 a month. There you go. Okay, Michael says he checked out prices last week to Kuala Lumpur. $200. That's same thing pretty much to Vietnam. $200-$300 for airfare plus hotels. It's going to cost you $500 to leave the country and come back. I know everything has a question. Well, that's kind of an oxymoron. If you are a person that knows everything, how come you don't know how much money it costs to rent a house with a pool? You're not going to rent a house with a pool probably. I saw one a few years ago. It was 30,000 pesos a month, about $600 a month for a small pool in the backyard. But I don't think you could get it for that anymore. But that's probably where you're going to bottom line. A house with like a 2-bedroom house with a bathroom and a pool, It's going to go between $30 and $600 and $800 a month, but I don't think you could get it for that price anymore. Bohol is being built up so fast, the prices change by the week. They don't change by the year anymore. They change by the week. Hello, Scott. There's no private beaches on the island of Bohol that I know of. Even behind the most elegant mansion, if it's on a beach or a shoreline, Filipinos have a 20-meter setback from the ocean's edge, high water mark. So 20 meters from the high water mark or more if it's a cliff area with high bluffs. So let's say you owned a piece of property on the top of a rocky mountain, on top of coral, let's say, and the property, you have to be back a certain amount of meters off the water's edge. But if you had a backyard, let's say your house started 25 meters back from the water's edge, okay, and you put up a fence to block right to the edge of the cliff where it goes down to the ocean where the ocean meets the beach at the bottom or the rock jetty at the bottom, whatever. You have to leave access for people to walk through your yard. There has to be access. Doesn't matter if you're a hotel or you are a private house. Now, there is one location in Bohol that you can't have access to, supposedly. If you push the issue, they'd have to let you on the property. It's at the other end of Alona Beach. They won't let you go up to the top unless you're going to have dinner in the restaurant. You can't traverse through their property. And the main reason for that is because where their property begins is a marine sanctuary. So in the case of a marine sanctuary, they can stop you from walking along that 20-meter section of ocean. That's what I was told. Now, no one needs to go up there because there's nothing past that except mansions, and it's all marine sanctuary for over a kilometer. So that's the only place I was ever told I couldn't go, and actually they let me go there anyway to make videos. So but most people as tourists are not allowed. I don't need a chill pill. I need people to listen. Now, some of these people that are asking the same question are the same people that watched my last 3 or 4 live streams where I went over the same questions. I don't need a chill pill. I need people to pay attention. Okay? If you were in school and I gave you this information and you couldn't remember it, you'd fail the test. People come, they read the comments, they listen to the words that come out of my mouth, and their memory retention is about 10 or 15%. People need to start paying more attention to what they're doing. Shut the music off in the background. Shut the television off in the background. If you're going to ask a question, if you're going to watch something, watch it. Pay attention. If there was a quiz and you couldn't remember what was on the last, I watched a Plain Truths video on those Firenados, and I remember almost everything that man said for 58 minutes. Okay, I don't expect everybody to remember, but if I see your name on my live stream for the last 2 or 3 of the last 5 live streams that I made, and I'm probably going to make the assumption that you've watched most of them, and that all of this information has been gone over several times, and then you ask the same question that somebody else asked while you were watching the last live stream. That's not fair to me. Don't tell me to take a chill pill. I need people to pay attention. I do this to help people. But if you're not going to pay attention, I don't want to redress every question 75 times. Now, you got that other moron that thinks that I have ADHD or whatever. I've already been diagnosed to not have that. Maybe the fact that I'm a little bit more intelligent than most people, and the fact that I'm prone to be more up, let's say, from because I live a clean lifestyle, you mistake that for attention deficit disorder. Screw you, pal. Where you breathe. Okay? I don't have any of that stuff. My cousin, who does have it and has been institutionalized for it, said the last thing I have is HDHD. Scott Del Fuego, who would understand what that is, also said, no, you don't have HDHD. So I don't need people putting that garbage on my live stream. Don't tell me to take a chill pill. This is my channel. I say what I want. You don't like it? Leave. I don't care that I've talked nice to you before, because I don't care if you watch another 10 seconds of this. Don't tell me to chill so you can have a following of people to say, yeah, you're too uptight, Michael. You either have HDHD or there's something mentally wrong with you. There's nothing mentally wrong with me. The only thing mentally wrong with me is I'm about 250 times smarter than the average human being. And I expect people to listen when I take the time to give the information out. And if there was a quiz, they would fail the test. If there was a test to build an airplane and I gave you instructions how to build the airplane and you took the test and you didn't fail it, you wouldn't get your license. Okay, this isn't airplane mechanics, but I expect people to ask me questions and I expect them to remember the answer and I expect them to remember what I say in my live streams. Considering I'm not getting paid for it, the least you could do is pay attention. Probably, Gene. They're probably just yanking my chain, but that's the way I feel about it. If I'm in a class, and I don't care, if I am going to take the time to watch something, I'm going to take the time to memorize it. Probably you're right. They're just yanking my chain. But that other clown, whatever his name was, he comes on my channel every single time under a different name and leaves 50 or 60 of the same type of. I actually probably have a good idea who he is. Can't prove it, so I wouldn't say his name, but he does the same thing. For what reason? What reason would a 40-year-old grown man have to come to troll my channel? For what reason? What mental problem does that 40-year-old man have to come and troll my channel? Or 20-year-old man? Or 50-year-old man? What mental problem does somebody have to come and troll my channel in that fashion? What is wrong with you people that troll other people's channels? You ask me if I have HDHD, and I'm telling you that there's something seriously wrong inside your head, and I have enough mental capacity to see that if we were put and judged by people of a panel to say that there's something a lot more wrong with you for trolling my channel than for me to be hyper. So screw you, where you breathe. Inattentive ones. Inattentive ones are worthy. They are worthy. Okay, I forgot about the DOD. Hi, Daisy. How you doing, honey? Daisy's gonna say hello. What? It's only.
Hello, everyone.
And we also we're gonna give.
Thank you for
A delicious meal.
a delicious meal, Excelsior.
Yeah, we had Daisy had, what did you have to eat?
Burrito.
Yes. That's a different language for that. Daisy had a beef burrito.